Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And by InVision. Find out why so many hot startups are using InVision to prototype, present, and collaborate on design in real time. Sign up today for a 90-day free trial at invisionapp.com/twist.
Hey everybody. On this episode of This Week in Startups, it's the legendary entrepreneur Michael Robertson, and he has a new company called 6 Seconds, which is indexing 100,000 different radio stations around the world. It's a super clever product from a very outspoken entrepreneur, and we talk also in the second half of the interview about race, gender, politics, libertarianism, minimum income, all kinds of crazy topics. It's a really great episode. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and this podcast has been going on for 5 or 6 years now, and we do 104 episodes a year, which means it's approximately twice a week, or exactly twice a week, and over 1 million people listen to the show every month, and we get the best guests on the program. Today will be no different. We have Michael Robertson, who is a legendary internet entrepreneur who I've known for close to 2 decades now. Yeah, it's 2 decades, Michael. We've known each other. You, of course, were the king of the MP3 and you owned MP3.com in the height of the .com bubble. That company did pretty well. I think you made a lot of money off of that.
Yeah, we went public on NASDAQ and eventually sold to Vivendi Universal, the world's largest music company, who sued us, by the way.
Wait, they sued you and then bought you? Or
yes, and that should tell you a lot about lawsuits. You know, maybe they're not about right and wrong, and maybe it's about business leverage.
Of course. And you then did, I know you did a PC company.
Right,
Lindows, which was a Linux version of Windows.
Right.
That never caught on into a mainstream thing. Why didn't it catch on? I thought that was a brilliant idea. You had like a $99 PC or a $299 PC?
Right. Well, it turns out if you give a company, Microsoft, a 20-year head start, it's pretty tough to catch up.
Right.
And so the operating system that we built, which started off as Lindows, and Microsoft sued us, if you remember.
Because you did the play on words.
That's right. And they actually paid us $20 million to change our name, too.
Really?
You know that, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So they basically lost the lawsuit, or...
We never went to trial. So they sued us, and I said, Windows is a generic word.
Right.
That, yes, you technically have the trademark, but you should have never been granted it.
Right.
And so we can't be infringing because it's a generic word.
Right.
I mean, Microsoft didn't coin the term Windows.
Right.
It was well used in computing circles. But on the eve of trial, they said, hey, how about you change your name? And I said, fine, we'll change our name. And so we changed our name to Linspire. Now, it didn't matter because we still weren't
But you got
successful.
that $20 million payday. Wow. That's
that helped
settlement.
fund a lot of the company.
Right, and pay for the lawsuit.
Sure.
Did your blood pressure change under these lawsuits? Because you seem completely fine with being in lawsuits with major players. Does it change your blood pressure these days? You get upset? Do you stare at the ceiling when these things happen, or do you just that's just a normal course of business?
I think if you're in the media business, then it's just a component of that sector. I mean, you saw it recently with Robin Thicke and Blurred Lines.
Right.
Huge
settlement. Was it like $8 million?
They went to court and lost in a jury who says, well, you didn't take any of the actual music, but it sounds a lot like,
this other song. Marvin Gaye?
Marvin Gaye's, I think, song.
Yeah.
And they lost, and it's a judgment. They're going to appeal and stuff like that. It's just a sad part of the media business, I think.
That it's so litigious.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and then you did DAR.FM, which was fantastic. I love this concept.
It's a time shifting for radio.
Yeah, it was a DVR for radio.
Exactly. So if you like talk, go get DAR.FM.
Yeah.
Time shift your sports shows, your political shows, things like that. Oh, in between that, I did Gizmo 5,
Yeah, what was Gizmo 5?
That was a VoIP company,
Right.
and I sold it to Google.
Right.
Yeah, so my team is now running all the Google Voice stuff.
Got it. Would that be like the stuff when you're in Gmail and you make a phone call there? Like
That's
in the
right.
little
Google
thing?
Voice now morphing into Google Hangouts. A lot of those products are converging.
Yeah. And so you are going to announce and share a new product today after this is like your 6 or 7 major product in your career. Tell us, what is the new product, and can you show it to us?
Sure. Well, it's called 6 Seconds.
6 seconds.
6 Seconds. And what it is imagine Pandora,
Yep.
but with unlimited skips.
Okay, because that's the number one thing people complain about.
That's right. What's curious here is that, of course, Pandora limits you to 5.
5 skips.
5. But if you look at what they do on Spotify, and the desktop, Spotify is not limited, even for free,
Oh, interesting.
on the desktop. People do an average of 14 skips an hour.
Wow.
So that shows you that we're in this, hyper-click world. People
Yeah.
really want to skip. So we built this new music experience. And how we did it is very unique, but I'll get to that in one second. But first of all, you have unlimited skips. You have search for free on mobile, and no one else has that, right?
Right.
Normally, you can search, and they'll go, okay, well, I'll play music like that, but I'm not going to play that particular song or artist for you.
Right.
And then we also have a feature called song hunting. And to understand that, let me tell you how we made 6 Seconds.
Yeah, tell me how you made this.
So here's a puzzle for you.
Right.
What is the one area that Google does not index?
Area that Google does not index.
Right. They do newspapers,
Sure.
magazines, restaurant menus, blogs, photos,
Books,
books,
videos, news. Yeah,
flight schedules.
they do scholarly papers.
Video.
Yeah, so I don't think they do MP3 files. I'm going to guess. But I know that Baidu and the other places do them because that's always been the classic hack is to go to Baidu or use like a Chinese VPN and like you can search there for like literally .mp3 files and they come up. Am I right or wrong?
That's a very keen observation. Google does index MP3 files, but they won't link directly to an MP3 file. They'll link
Right.
to a page that has MP3 files.
Correct.
And you can search and they'll say, well, it's on
That's
that
a deep
page.
linking thing.
That's right, but they won't link directly to
it
MP3
to
That's
protect themselves.
It's
Who knows?
probably to appease the music industry.
Right, because they have Google Play. So the Google Play does not want you to. Yeah,
Right, but they link directly to torrents. That's always been a big issue with the movie industry.
Right, or torrent. But do they link directly to the magnet links? But the magnet links are not. We're getting really in the technical weeds here, but those are those even URLs? I don't even know what a magnet link is.
I don't know.
Just a string of text.
Sure.
Who knows?
But,
Anyway.
But you still haven't told me the one thing that Google does not index.
Okay, well, we know they index a ton of porn, that's for sure.
That's right.
And they actually advertise against porn, I believe, which was always, I thought, somewhat hypocritical, but because they will ding you for having adult content on your page if you're using AdWords, but they will actually sell AdWords on porn searches on their own site, which is kind of weird. I got to think this through here. They will not index. What won't they index? They won't index.
I'm going to have to tell you.
You have to tell me. Go ahead.
Radio.
Ah.
They don't know what's playing anywhere in the world of radio.
Sure.
And that's what we did.
Ah.
So I built a search engine that catalogs 100,000 online radio stations.
Interesting.
Now, when I say catalog, I don't just mean make a list of A to Z. Other people do that. TuneIn does that. And,
Sure.
and if you search
if you're looking for KCRW
Yeah,
in Santa Monica, you're
that
going to
will
get
be
to that
in there.
really easily.
Right. What's not in there is what is KCRW playing right this very second?
And they do share that in some kind of a meta tag in their stream, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes they post it, the individual stations, sometimes they'll post it online, sometimes they'll have an XML feed, sometimes they put it in their audio stream as a text attachment.
So there's no clear standard there.
No, it's a really messy problem.
Hard.
That's probably why Google it doesn't do it, because it's very messy. It's not like all the data is sitting there on a web server for you to grab. So that's what we did. We built a search engine for all of radio. And 6 Seconds, the app that I'm going to show you, is a music experience. None of the audio comes from us. It's really a search experience.
What a hack.
On top of radio.
That is so genius. So if I typed in the Robin Thicke song, Blurred Lines, I could drop into a radio station and start listening to it.
Exactly. Let's
at
take
that
a look.
moment in time. Let's take a look.
Let's take a look.
Good segue. Let's take a look.
All right. So on the left is iOS. On the right is Android.
Yep.
I'm a demo with Android, but they work exactly the same. So when you start up the app, it's a gesture-based app, right? That's what everyone does now, all swipes, no buttons, no menus, sub-menus. To get started, you just swipe. I'm in the top 40 section, so it's going to go get me a top 40 song here. Hello, wake up. One sec.
It could be the Wi-Fi here is not great. We've had many Wi-Fi problems.
So let's swipe.
Oh, there we go. Boom. So Take Me to Church.
And
KISS 98.1 KISC.
Right. And if our video guys will give us audio.
There we go.
There
Boom.
you go. Right, so I'm connected now to KISS 98.1. I'm in the top 40 section. If I decide I don't like this, I simply swipe, and I'm going to get another song from the top 40 section. Right? I don't like it, skip. I'm going to get another song from the top 40 section. And each time I'm connecting to a different station. Right now I'm on WERZ FM. You see that right down here?
Yeah, you're using the scan feature from the car.
That's right.
But it's intelligent, and it's global.
Right. So if I do nothing, I'm going to continue to stay on the station, hear whatever they play, songs, commercials, whatever.
Great for them.
That's right. Exactly. They're going to get new listeners. And by the way, radio is dying. They're getting crushed by Pandora.
Of course they are.
Absolutely destroyed. So they need new ways for people to access this. So we have unlimited skips. I'm in the top 40 section. Let's switch to a different genre here. Let's do classic rock.
I was going to hope you're going to do Christian.
So again, we're going to dump you at songs. You don't like it, you switch. We're always going to pick songs that are at the start.
Ah,
right?
clever.
I mean, because we have 100,000 stations to choose from.
Fascinating. So, yeah, or first 10 seconds or something.
That's right, right. Within the first 6 seconds.
Ah.
There you go.
2 6s, got it.
Yeah. So you've seen the unlimited skip, but it gets much better than that because if I swipe up, I'm going to get search. So let's do that.
Here we go.
And let's type in. You mentioned. Let's do. A nice crash. Fantastic.
Don't worry about it. 1.0 software.
Yeah.
Do Dylan. Do Bob Dylan.
Let's do Aerosmith.
Oh, Aerosmith. Okay.
Aerosmith. So here's a list of every Aerosmith song playing anywhere in the radio. You'll recognize a lot of these. Dude Looks Like a Lady, Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion, Ragdoll, Dream On. If you want to listen to one, you just click it. It's going to connect you right to that station.
Genius. And now can I subscribe to that station or star it or whatever?
That takes me to the next part.
Yeah.
You see down next to the...
there is a star.
There's a favorite. If I click next to the station, I'm going to favorite that station.
Yeah.
But you can also favorite the song, and this is really fun. This is a feature we call song hunting. So as you use the app, you go, oh, I really like that song, and I really like that song.
It's learning about me. Yeah.
That's right. If I swipe down, it's going to immediately do a search of my personal favorites from anywhere in the radio world and load them in here. Let's try one more time here. There you go.
Got
it looked up my personal favorites in less than a second, playing anywhere in the radio world, and this is the list. They'll all be sorted. Everything's always sorted by how fresh the song is, meaning is it just started. So the things that are at the top will have just started, and as you go down, it will be further on. If you want to listen to some Bang Bang, we click, and we're going to listen to some Bang Bang.
All right, now here's something. Do a search for Bob Dylan. Humor me for a minute, because here's the thing. Like, I don't know what radio stations feature Bob Dylan, right? And what I really like about this being a Bob Dylan head is, there he is on the top. Boom. I can see if somebody is playing something really fascinating. Now, when I look at this list, before you hit anything,
Oh, sorry.
no problem.
We'll scroll back. There it is.
What's really interesting about this is you would expect somebody to play like a Rolling Stone, a Rainy Day Woman, Everybody Must Get Stoned. Stuck Inside. Oh, that's interesting. It's a cover of it, too. Stuck Inside a Mobile with Memphis Blues. That's an obvious song. But here, Empire Burlesque. That is and then Bob Dylan from Street Legal, Years of Tales of Yankee Power. These are obscure songs. So click on Empire Burlesque. I want to see who's playing the album Empire Burlesque.
J.M. Salas.
Wow. So where are they playing that? It's like that, like a community-generated...
We're indexing the entire world of radio. So what's fascinating is that you'll be listening to a station sometime, and all of a sudden the DJ will come on, and you won't even recognize the language. It'll be Portuguese or,
That's fascinating.
German or whatever.
See, I love the discovery aspect of this because That album, Empire Blast, one of my favorite albums from Dylan. Mark Knopfler actually produced it, and it is a very obscure album that is almost like if Dylan was the lead singer of Dire Straits. It was a fantastic album, but who would ever know that except for me and like the, million top or 100,000 Dylan fans in the world who really care. Well, this fascinating to me.
This is a great way to find stations. I personally like ambient music, chill kind of music.
Yeah.
And so you type in your 07 or your prototypical artist that matches that genre, and there's the stations that will play it all over the world.
All right. When we get back from commercial break, I want you to explain to me the legality of all of this, and that is a great segue to thank my good friend Scott Walker for sponsoring This Week in Startups. Of course, he's with the Walker Corporate Law Group, which is a boutique law firm that specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups like you and me. And they encouraged fixed fees. That's right. They'll do a flat rate fixed fees so that you know how much you're going to wind up spending on incorporating, mergers and acquisitions, licensing agreements, terms of service, privacy policies, raising money, all that stuff. Scott really takes the time to work with entrepreneurs and make sure they understand what they're doing. And all of the people at his boutique law firm have 10 to 20 years of experience. He is a great guy. He's been sponsoring the program. I think he might be the longest continuous sponsor of the program now. It's like 4 or 5 years. And you can call him directly, founder to founder, 415-979-9998. 415-979-9998. Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Scott at Walker Corporate Law is his direct email, and it's Walker Corporate Law Group. And you can follow Scott on the Twitter. Scott Ed Walker is his Twitter handle. And go ahead and thank at Scott Ed Walker for sponsoring independent media like This Week in Startups. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you, Scott. Hey, all right. So this is a hack and a really clever one. You can search radio stations. Now, you're launching this today. People are starting to play with it. If this becomes a huge hit, how is the radio industry, the music industry, the artists, how is everybody going to look at this, do you think? And have you had any conversations with them yet?
We've had some conversations with radio stations.
Cool.
Because they want listeners. They need listeners.
Right.
What is happening with FM stations is they're getting cannibalized, destroyed by Pandora. Some are switching to talk. But they need new ways to find listeners. And so this is a way for them to get listeners. Imagine if there was a world where there was no Google. How much traffic would your website get? Not much. Well, that's exactly what radio stations are at. They put up a radio station, and it's basically undiscoverable by the average Joe because there's no search interface. So the smart radio stations love us. The record labels are getting paid every time a song is played. Remember, there's royalties that are paid, and they're substantial online. Right. So the artists are getting paid every single time a song is being played.
So no worries there. And then what's your business model, I guess, is the next question, because you can't slap ads in there, I don't know, or do you maybe do app installs or just unknown and you'll see?
Well, think of us like Google. We are Google for radio.
Right.
So how does Google make money? Well, it's advertising. The biggest challenge, of course, is can you get the audience, right? So that's the unknown. We just launched today, literally today. So we'll see. If we can get millions of people discovering radio through 6 seconds, we'll do great because we'll have lots of advertising in and around that experience. We're not going to touch the audio. It's important for us not to touch the audio because that's where the royalties are, and that's how radio makes their money, through those audio ads.
So you're not going to insert an ad between the songs to play audio, but maybe when you swipe in between it, if you had a little pause in between for an app install, it sounds like fair game.
Sure.
And you could even share it back with the radio station.
Sure.
If you wanted to give a pot sweetener.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, I have this issue with some of the, as a content creator, I was in one of the podcasting radio apps, and they literally laid an Audible ad. I won't say which one because I don't want to get in a big public fight with them, but they laid a huge ad on top of This Week in Startups. And I said to them, oh, shoot, that is my sponsor, Audible. Did you sell my sponsor my show? And now all of a sudden I was like, hey, listen, this is not cool. You can't lay ads on top of my podcast and sell into my advertising. Like, just talking about Scott Walker. I don't want somebody calling Scott Walker unless they're working for me. I don't want some third-party app laying on top of. That's the problem is with this, like, whenever somebody aggregates is, whose audience is it? What do you think's fair in that regard?
Well,
obviously that's not fair. Laying it on top of.
It's a constant battle. Look at Google.
Yeah.
I mean, Google is an ad-based company that puts ads in and around content of all shapes and sizes all over the internet. I mean,
and the question, I guess, is the abstract. Is the little tiny 1 sentence or 2 sentence abstract a big deal or not? And I don't think that is. But I will tell you what's really problematic. Have you seen them pull the answer to a question where, like, if you said, I don't know, how many Grammy Awards has Bob Dylan won? They'll pull the sentence, Bob Dylan has won 7 Grammy Awards, from a Rolling Stone article and put that up at the top, saves you a click. Now, that seems to me like stealing.
Well, I was reading this report that says somewhere around, I want to say is around 35% of the Google queries are now answered on the page.
Yep.
So, and where does Google get that information? For the majority of it, they're scraping it.
Yep.
And, go type in the word hotel, Los Angeles into Google. It's all ads. It's all content taken from other places.
Yep.
Calendaring, they're taking all the calendar data. They take it. They aggregate it on Google.
Right.
So they're well beyond the, hey, let's put a small text ad next to your query. I mean, they go to these calendar sites. It really puts these guys in a dilemma, and here's why. Let's say you run, one of the big calendaring sites. Your choices are allow Google to take all of your content, redesign it, lay it out as their own, or put a robots.txt file and get no traffic from Google.
Yeah, what should companies do?
It's a very tough game. I mean, Google is tremendously powerful. And it's so ironic. I find it so hypocritical for Google because they will penalize your site if you scrape content from another site.
Right.
They will penalize you and say, hey, we're going to put you down the rankings. But that's Google's entire business.
It's amazing that nobody criticizes Google over this. And then even the FTC, I don't know if you read the Wall Street Journal article, the FTC wanted to investigate Google and somehow were not allowed to 3 years ago. And the documents leaked, and I put leak in air quotes for those people listening on the radio, because some people speculate that some people in the FTC were so upset by this being squashed that they accidentally leaked it to the Wall Street Journal when they had a Freedom of Information Act. Why do you think they got a pass?
Well, it was also been revealed that Google was visiting the White House twice a week for over a year. Twice a week for over a year.
Twice a week?
Twice a week for over a year. And that just shows you Google.
And now you have a bunch of people working there, don't you?
That's right. That's right. The CTO.
Megan.
That's right. Megan.
Friend of mine, yeah.
She's a nice lady. And she now, so there's lots of cross-pollination going. And Google knows that the government has tremendous power to shape technology. And all tech companies, once you get big, you have a very difficult choice. You have to play the Washington game, or you will get squashed by Washington, by your competitors who will play the game if you don't. So Google's in a tough situation. If they do nothing, they will absolutely get investigated by the FTC and action taken. And so they have to play the game to some level. But the weight that Google has is tremendous.
And the EU now is supposedly coming down with a $6 billion fine, which is like 10% of their revenue or something like that. It's not de minimis or more. And they're not going to let them get away with it, it seems. But your politics is you're like a hardcore libertarian.
I'm a libertarian.
You believe in the government getting involved in this kind of stuff, or do you think the market has to be kind of free? So if Google is doing this kind of stuff and being anti-competitive, scraping, stealing, whatever, do you think that's the court's jobs, the government's job? What do you think about monopolistic power? I'm curious.
I think the free market will counter it.
Yeah.
The only true monopolies are ones where the government grants a monopoly and protects it. So maybe it's phone companies or cable companies. Those are true monopolies. If you and I wanted to start a company and compete with Verizon, we can't because they've given the airwaves, the radio waves to one company.
Right.
And if we started this, they would confiscate our property, throw us in jail, whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the only true monopolies. Google's not a true monopoly. Yes, they do have enormous market share.
Yeah.
But listen, that's part of the free market.
Yeah.
The free market says if you have a leader, then all you little guys need to join forces and combat that. It's just it's no different than the game of Risk. I'm sure you've played the game of Risk.
Absolutely.
And we all do this. One guy gets real strong, 3 guys pound him from different sides, and he gets weak, and then you carry on with the game. And that's what needs to happen. If you want to challenge Google for their dominance, then companies need to get smart and work together.
Will somebody challenge Google, do you think? Is there going to be a challenger? Is there a challenger right now?
Well, I think the challenger is the smartphone.
Right.
The smartphone changes everything. It really does. And the search dominance that we see on the desktop is not prevalent on the smartphone. Right. So much like, Microsoft was convicted twice of antitrust violations, right? Being a big bad monopoly, convicted twice. Did any of the government's actions change that? No, not a bit, right? They had these rules about...
Yeah, it was the browser and bundling.
You can't put the browser, and you can't put Windows Media Player in. Very minor stuff. What really changed it was just technology changed.
The internet.
Exactly. The internet changed. Microsoft didn't get on the boat left without them, and that's really what does it. So even when the government tries to police a monopolist, I think they fail.
All right, when we get back from commercial break, I want to talk to you a little bit about some more political stuff, maybe the Ellen Pao trial, maybe gender, race, all this stuff that we talk about on Twitter when we get back on This Week in Startups. And let me thank InVision app, which is an amazing way to make beautiful mock-ups. I use it every day. I love this product. All my startups that I invest in use it as well. And what it basically does is it lets you take all of your beautiful designs, put them into a clickable little web browser link, send it to your investors, send it to your board, send it to potential hires, send it to the press, send it to partners, and they get to open it up on their website, add it to their home screen, and then click just like a little image map and go through the entire app before you commit one line of code. And then if somebody doesn't like how something looks, they can click on it with the crosshairs, hit the C to comment, and comment on the app and say, hey, maybe we should change this, maybe we should change that. It has revolutionized the way people develop apps, and I literally use it every day. I'm doing the Inside Drones app right now, and at first I started sending InVision links around from my very talented designer to our constituents, like the people at DJI, like the people at 3DR, like the people at Skycatch, just to show them, hey, here's what we're planning on doing. And they were like, wow, you should do this. That gave me the confidence to go spend the money and write the code. Twitter, Airbnb, Evernote, Adobe, myself at Launch, myself at Inside, we all use this product. And it is growing like a weed. So don't do email chains. Don't do never-ending streams in chat. Do it all inside of InVision. And they have an incredible 90-day free trial just for This Week in Startups viewers. It is InVisionApp.com/twist. I should be able to guess that. InVisionApp.com/twist. It's a great product, and go ahead and thank them on at InVision App. And as you know, I don't have to have commercials on the program. All I do is read the ones for the products I use. So we have white-listed advertising. If I'm reading the ad, it's because we or somebody on the staff uses the product. If we don't, we tell them they can just play an ad. So you always know if you're hearing my voice talk about it, it's because we dig the product, and we dig InVision, and of course Walker Corporal. All right, so let's talk a little bit about gender and diversity in the industry. You've been outspoken. Every time I talk about, hey, we need to get more female speakers, at this event or whatever, you're like, oh, you're picking people based on genitalia, whatever. What are your thoughts on equality and the industry and we have these really terrible stats on, diversity in places. Do you think there's an issue in the industry, and how do you think we should solve it?
Well, I don't think there's an issue. I mean, people have different skills. Based on their gender, their interest, their ethnicity. Yeah. Nobody says, hey, we have too many women nurses, we have too many women teachers. It's only with, the male jobs do they say that. To me, the issue with diversity, Jason, is that merit and diversity are opposing forces. Either you judge somebody based on the merits of their abilities, or you judge them based on their skin color or their chromosomes.
Right.
You must make a choice. And so that's my big issue with diversity, is that it is a antidote to merit. And I think people should be judged on merit. The notion that Silicon Valley is sexist or racist is preposterous.
Why?
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Every person that I know needs to make their business work. They need to generate a profit. Otherwise, they go away. That's just the nature of the game.
Right.
If I have a candidate sitting in front of me, and I choose not to hire that candidate because I say, well, she's a woman, I'm not going to hire a woman, I will be punished for that because my competitor will get a great employee at a great price. Capitalism punishes people if they're irrationally discriminatory. If they're making decisions on something besides merit, saying you're short, you're fat, you're black, you're white, you're a woman, you're yellow, whatever, and I'm not going to hire you.
Right.
Then they will be punished, and that will be pushed out. Why? Because ultimately, people care more about profit than they do discrimination. One of the classic examples is baseball. Baseball owners were some of the most racist individuals out there, and even the most racist individuals when segregation was still at its high points, and you had separate doors where blacks could go and separate parts of the restaurants where they could eat. Those racist owners got black players on their teams because they had to win, and that I think it shows you ultimately capitalism drives out discrimination.
But it may be a long arc. I mean, admittedly, yes, people went with the best players, but it took a long time, took a lot of protests, took a lot of fighting to actually, fully integrate. And in some schools, people never wanted to. And in here, you have 95% of, VCs are male. How long will it take for that number to actually get to any reasonable number of females? And do you think that in that kind of sort of situation where things change very slowly because, hey, you have a 10-year arc of a fund, that seems to be something where it is an old boys club and boys want to work with boys and they don't want to let women in? Does it apply also to the venture space, do you think? This sort of like, we're going to pick the best person, or we're going to pick the person we most want to hang out with?
Well, what's a reasonable number of women in a field? What's a reasonable number? Is it 10%? Is it 5%? Is it 30%? Is it 40%? What is a reasonable number? Here's the truth. Men and women are different. Their brains are different and their skills are different. I know we're not allowed to say that because it's not politically correct.
No, the brains
but it
are
is true.
different, yes.
It is true that if you look neurobiologically, men and women are different. We have different skills. We have different interests. And so it's preposterous to think that every field is going to be 51% women and 49%. Hey, listen, right now in colleges, what's the percentage of college graduates that are female?
Oh, it's much larger than male.
Right.
And graduate school
like
is
64%.
Yeah.
Do we have a problem there? Are men being prejudiced? Are men being discriminated against because it's not the 49% of the population that men make up? No. Men are making different choices. Men are just deciding not to go to college. They're going out and getting a job as the fisherman or the race car driver or basketball player or whatever, and they're choosing not to go to college. So this notion that there's a prescribed number of women that we should have in any field is preposterous. If women are qualified, they will run companies. They will run VC funds. But ultimately, that's going to be a merit decision. If it makes sense to have a woman CEO, then boards are going to choose women CEOs because boards want to make money because they want to be on successful companies.
But some of them, like historically, have just had a very small number of females on the board. Do you think because you don't have a female on the board, it would lead people to maybe not think of women because they don't have as many women in their network? Is this a possibility?
Oh, sure. Of course. Yeah. Of course. I mean, listen, I'm in San Diego. I'm not in Silicon Valley.
Right.
Right? In San Diego, sometimes I look at the garbage that is getting funded in Silicon Valley, and I'm thinking to myself, dear Lord, right? And why are they getting funded? Because they're in Silicon Valley.
Right.
Because they're going to the same cocktail hours with the VCs, and so they're getting funded. These copycat companies that are not leaders, they're not very innovative, et cetera. Hey, that's just part of life.
Right.
That you're going to associate with those that are in your same proximity. But that isn't because people are being discriminatory against San Diegans. It's just part of life because I'm going to associate with those that are in my near vicinity.
And so you're kind of here we go. Question from the audience. Let me grab these here. The great Gunther says, will this app be available in Germany and worldwide? What's the laws on that with radio? I don't even know. And app stores.
It's 6 seconds is available today. If you go to unlimitedskips.com, that's the landing page.
So you can do it on a browser. from
No,
anywhere?
that's just a landing page
Got
that
it.
tells you here's the video. But if you search for 6 seconds in either the Android store or iOS store anywhere in the world, you can get the app
Really?
because there are worldwide stations available worldwide.
Right.
There are some stations that are geo-blocked.
How does that work?
Example would be Clear Channel stations, or now they're called iHeart. They block non-U.S. listeners. So all of our technology takes care of that. So if you're in Germany and you fire up 6 seconds, you're only going to get stations that will play in Germany.
Got it. So you know that this is blocked, so you're not going to have like some weird ganky experience.
Right.
Interesting. And so what do you think now that you have this sort of like 20-year arc of being in the industry about the current state of technology? Because when we were coming up in the 90s, we all knew the promise of this, but, there wasn't revenue, there wasn't broadband. And so things were irrationally exuberant for valuations, and the reality was, a step down or 2 steps down. Now we have exuberance for sure, but the revenues are mega steps up. Do you think it's a bubble, or are you concerned that it's a bubble? What do you think's going on in this cycle? Is it going to end? Is it going to go sideways? I mean, it's a big topic of discussion, obviously.
I find all the is this the bubble, discussion trivial. To me, I just want to build my company. I just want to build value. Those companies that are building value, whether it's the Ubers or the Snapchats, they're probably still undervalued, astonishingly as it may seem.
Right.
And
please say that one more time. Uber is undervalued. Please.
That's right, because you own some shares, right?
It's very funny today. I was just I'm cleaning up my portfolio because I'm going to be potentially raising another angel fund. I have my current one is kind of coming to fruition, 60% of the way there. And I got to put some statistics together. And I just emailed the person I was just looking through my emails, and I literally found 25 emails from 2011 when I was investing in the literal $5.25 million post-money valuation Uber. And looking at the percentage ownership and going, wow, Jesus, this thing has grown. And then I emailed the IR person, the investor relations person at Uber, and I was like, what are the stock splits been, and what's going on? Because I really don't check on it. I just use it, and I talk to Travis once in a while, and we're friends, and that's it. I don't really think about these things. And they're like, yeah, it's stock splits this many times, this has happened, the share price. I was like, holy sugar. Angel investing is a good thing to do.
So get the big picture. The leaders, they're always going to be rightfully so high valued. Those that aren't leaders, I think, are overvalued now because there's so many more companies.
And so much money
because here's
around.
Here's what we know. Here's what we know about the internet. The leader gets all the value, 90%.
Yeah.
Right?
90%.
Yeah, exactly. So is there a bubble? No, there's not a bubble, but people are getting over enthusiastic about second, third, fourth tier players.
Right.
There's just not enough room in most sectors for that.
It's like betting on the 8th seed in the NBA or something. It's like, yeah, they're in the finals or they're in the NBA playoffs, but barely. And they're certainly not going to beat the Warriors or LeBron James or something, right? We wouldn't make that bet. But people do it here, I guess, because
they can't get into the Uber. They miss the opportunity.
Yeah, I guess that is it. And what do you think fundamentally changes with mobile? I mean, obviously you were a web guy for a long time, and now you're starting to do mobile apps. On a product basis, what do you think is fundamentally different, and has that been challenging for you, being somebody who was a desktop guy?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I was a desktop guy, so to start thinking mobile does require a shift. Listen, I'm 48 years old.
Yep.
I'm a different era.
Yeah.
Than today. So it really did take some, remolding of my brain. What I find fascinating there is there's 2 gatekeepers. It's Android and Google.
Right.
I mean, Android and Apple, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Google, of course, owns Android. Those are the new gate. When we were growing up and you talked about mobile, it was Verizon and T-Mobile. You had to go. Those were the gatekeepers.
And they would actually cut a deal with you. They were more than willing to cut some kind of a deal. With these new ones, there's no deal to be had other than going to Facebook, I guess, and buying installs, or Fixu, or some of these ones that put in spam installs.
I'm of the mind there's always been gatekeepers.
Yeah.
They're just different. Right? There always have been gatekeepers,
Yeah.
Maybe there was Garden of Eden time. You know, when
Right.
you and I started in the late 90s, when it was just so open.
Yeah.
And there weren't any big players.
There's a browser, type in a domain name.
Exactly. And
there.
nobody had 90% market share of anything.
Right.
And so maybe there was a small window when it wasn't quite as gatekeeperized. But there's always been gatekeepers, and there will continue to be.
What do you think about America today in relation to, sort of the world and economies? Because there was a time when people were feeling pretty nervous about this country, financial crisis, et cetera. And now it seems like everybody is back on the American bandwagon. I know you're a student of politics and everything, and you read a lot. What are your thoughts on America and the rest of the world, geopolitically and startups and economies?
Well, I'm bullish on the United States because even with all its problems, it still has. On the freedom ranking, we still do pretty well. But here's my biggest concern.
What's the freedom ranking?
Just my freedom ranking. Do you have freedom of speech? Do you have property rights? Do you have, no classes? So, those sorts of basic fundamentals.
Yeah, we're still pretty good.
We're still pretty good. There's rankings that say we've dropped out of the top 10, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But overall, I think it's still good. Here's the thing that concerns me the most. Today's young people are getting screwed by our university system, which is charging them $100,000 to $200,000 tax to get into the job marketplace. And of course, I'm referring to our university system.
Yeah, it's insane.
It is absolutely outrageous. And what I want people to do is to start embracing a different path where people don't have to go to college. So first of all, let me just say outright, college is tremendously overvalued.
How overvalued is that $200,000 degree?
Well, the biggest point that I think people forget.
Like, what dollar value would you put it on? As I'm saying, in general, because we could actually think about that.
Right. I would say it's probably about 10%.
Okay. So $20K is probably what the value of those 4 years is.
Right.
Provided.
And here's the mistake that everybody makes. They say, hey, let's compare a high school grad versus a college grad.
Right.
Oh my goodness, the college grad makes so much more money.
Right.
The problem inherent with that comparison is what's called a selection bias.
Yeah.
What that means is you have Kentucky. 7 players from Kentucky just signed up to be drafted in the NBA.
Yeah.
And they're saying that 6 of them are going to go in the first 2 rounds probably.
Right.
Are they NBA because they went for 1 year to Kentucky?
Right.
No. These were McDonald's All-Americans. They were NBA bound before they went to Kentucky.
They could have just gone straight to the NBA, probably.
Right. NBA doesn't allow that, but if they would have, like LeBron did, they would, but they no longer allow that. So they force them to go to college. But my point is that if you said, well, the only reason they're going to the NBA is because they went to Kentucky.
It wasn't the 1 year in Kentucky that did it.
That's right. And it's
not the college degree that's getting these people jobs or their salaries.
Right. That's right. Why did they go to college? They went to college because they were more motivated, more intelligent, had better families.
They're ambitious.
In the high school.
Yeah. They probably had a better home life with more money and more resources, therefore.
Right, but there's this cultural compulsion that you must go to college, right? I mean, there's it's inherent that says, oh, well, if you're smart, you go to college. And if a kid go, oh, he didn't go to college, you automatically go, I don't know about that guy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a little on the dumb side. We've got to change that. I think in the next 5 or 10 years, that is going to change. And we're going to say the smart ones aren't going to college, not because they couldn't get in, but because they're making the conscious choice to go to a different path. Education is key, but how we do it in our college system is absurd. The notion that education has to be these little pockets, where those are the only reason we have universities is because books were really expensive. Right. And only certain places had books, and you had to go to the place where the books are.
And the professors, and now these professors are all being tenured. They're not teaching classes, so they're just getting this huge overhang. From what I understand, the administrators and the tenured professors are this reason for this massive acceleration. They just shouldn't have tenure. You should just have to fight it out to be a great teacher and have NPS scores on your teachers.
Right. I agree with that, but I would say there's fundamentally a bigger issue here.
Yeah.
Universities are mainframes, and we're living in a smartphone world.
Yeah.
That's the real thing. The whole notion that you have to go to a special place and pay $20,000 to $40,000 a year to get this information is ridiculous. I would contend, Jason, that Linda, Linda, you've had her on your show.
Yep.
She's done more to educate people.
For sure.
than the universities. I know it's probably blasphemous to the universities.
$20 a month, right? $25 a month, unlimited education.
That's right.
See, this is where I
And here's what needs to change.
Yeah.
Thought leaders like you and me,
Yeah.
we have to publicly say we will hire people
Yeah.
who do not have college degrees.
I'm doing it all the time. I don't even look at the college degree anymore, except maybe to laugh at it. Like, I was literally interviewing somebody from Harvard, and I was like, you went to Harvard? Why didn't you quit like all the winners who went to Harvard who quit after a year? And they laughed, and they're like, yeah, no, I stuck it out for 4 years. I was like, did you become smarter? They're like, I don't know. Like, it was kind of funny. But I agree with you. If my daughter doesn't go to college, I would be just fine with that. And if she says to me, Dad, you were going to spend $200K on college, how about I try to do 3 different businesses, $25K, then I'll try $50K, and then I'll put the last $125K into the third one. We'll try 3 different ones, and you can help me with it, and we'll see how it goes. I'd be like, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's $25,000, open up a cafe. Here's $50,000, now try the next thing, and then boom, whichever one you want, try it. Do something. This bite-sized nuggets is such a better way to go. I think apprentices should come back, the apprenticeship.
For sure, 100%.
Can you imagine if somebody came to you, like one of your friends, if I said to you, hey, listen, you're running this company, it's 10 years from now, I was like, hey, can I pay you 10 grand a year, can I pay you 25 grand for the next 6 months to have my daughter go work at your company and come to meetings with you and sit in there? You'd be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, it's going to cost us money to have her around, right? You can't do internships in this country without getting sued. People cannot make a decision to do a free internship because they're too stupid and need to be protected by the nanny state.
Right, but aren't you a minimum wage person? Don't you think we have minimum wage? Because I agree with 100% what you said. And the minimum wage is the most cost-effective education blocker that there is.
Explain that.
Meaning that the best way to learn anything is to go to a job that activity is performed, whether it's radio or a TV show or a restaurant or whatever.
Right.
And if you want to go to cost-effective learning, where they'll even pay you $5 an hour, $6, $7 an hour, that's not allowed in our government. Our government says, no, you have to pay this person at least $10 an hour. Right. What that does is that forces a young person to say, well, what are my options? Now I have to go to college because I can't get an apprenticeship. Yeah. Because if the apprenticeship pays less than $9 an hour, $10 an hour, $8 an hour, depending on where you are, the person will get sued.
Yeah, no, and people are getting sued for the free internship thing. They sued Charlie Rose and Gawker and all this other stuff. And it's like, I really don't understand why an individual can't decide for themselves if they want to do a 3 or 6 month internship for free. And then people are like, well, then poor people can't go to it. And I was like, well, you and I both grew up poor, so we kind of have the same view on that, which is like, well, you could be a waiter and then at night and go do the internship during the day or something, right? But on the minimum wage, see, that's a very challenging issue for me because I used to be a non-minimum wage guy. And, I'm kind of like 80% libertarian, I guess. But there's some pieces where I think we're not getting there, like we're just not getting there. And that concerns me. I really think now minimum wage has to be a state-by-state issue. And I'm a big states' right guy and even cities, because the cost of living in certain cities is so high, and the cost of living in other places is so much lower, that the minimum wage in San Francisco versus the minimum wage in Atlanta versus the minimum wage in whatever the town outside of Atlanta is, it's so radically different, the cost structure now of cities. A one-bedroom apartment in this town is $3,500, $4,000 I think is a one-bedroom in San Francisco right now. A one-bedroom in San Diego is $1,000, and a one-bedroom in whatever the area outside San Diego is $400 or something. It's multiple different economies, and maybe that's an argument for market setting the price.
Well, here's where I would challenge your thinking. Yeah. If you believe in the free market, which I do, and I think you do too.
I do until the problem with the free market, I think, is sometimes it can run amok. Sometimes when you have like big monopolistic players, it can. Like when you have a Walmart is the only game in town, more supply than demand, they put everybody outside of business, there might not be a free market anymore.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But ultimately, if you're a free market person, you believe that the market sets the price on goods.
For sure.
And services.
The idea of a $10 minimum wage in this town is absurd. Like, you know what? A dog walker gets paid $25 an hour in this town.
But if you fundamentally believe in a free market and that the market sets the price, then you must also concede that government price fixing doesn't work. It fails. Why? Because it's always going to be too high or too low, right? If it's too low, there's no supply. If it's too high, it's going to crush demand. Always. Right. Doesn't matter whether you're talking toilet paper in Venezuela, apartments in San Francisco, it doesn't matter, or human labor.
Right.
So to me, the notion of minimum wage, even if it's instituted with the best of intentions, is going to fail because all price fixing fails. Why? Because politicians can't set the price of things correctly.
They can't do it accurately, and the market moves too quickly. And then you have this other thing, which is the market has become so global now that the second you overprice it here, which the unions did for car labor, it's like, oh, well, we can build the cars in Japan cheaper, and boom. Or accountants, and it went to India. And now the opposite's happening. The idea of hiring an Indian engineer, people are starting to look at insourcing or building products here because the shipping and the freight and everything just
I would contend that the amount of harm created by labor laws in the United States, whether it be at minimum wage or work hours or things like that, is massive. Costs our country tens of billions of dollars because people outsource it. The internet is so easy now. You know Fiverr, you know Elance, you know these sites, and they're taking this business. So the politicians come in and say, well, we're going to make it a $10, $12 minimum wage. What are the businesses going to do? They're just going to outsource everything. And even the stuff that you don't think can be outsourced or automated, like making hamburgers, will be. And that's what you're seeing right now. And this is another reason why minimum wage, with all its best intentions, hurts our society more than it helps.
What do you think then about automation and the future of jobs? Because it's a hot topic in our industry because we're making the software and hardware in some cases that does eliminate jobs. Do you think we're going to be in a negative job growth society where there just might be 25% less jobs, or do they get replaced with new jobs?
Well,
or unknown.
Right. I think we always look and say, hey, the automobile came, all those horseshoers are going to lose their business.
Yep.
I mean, that's always the innate approach to technology. We can't fathom the new inventions that people will create, the new activities. Yep. And humans are phenomenal at creating new activities.
Yep.
Now
television.
Now that we have unlimited food, in effect, and heat is no longer an issue, right? We come up with gambling, or we come up with fantasy football, or unlimited ways to spend our activities, which will always require needs. One thing that I think you're going to see for sure is a robot tax. That's what I'm pretty sure you're going to see.
That's fascinating.
Right? They're going to say, hey, you got this robot, you bad tech guy, and you're costing people jobs. You need to pay society. They call those externalities. Every time you hear that word, you just replace it with BS. Because that's what it is. They'll say your externality is that you're costing humans jobs, and therefore we're going to tax you. So I fully expect there to be a robot tax instituted to compensate society for all the jobs that hamburger making machine or the kiosk that makes vends your food or whatever services.
Let me ask you about minimum income. This is the antithesis of what we're talking about. Do you think minimum income will happen? And are you following that sort of discussion of, hey, everybody gets $1,000 a month. We put all the money in a pot. Everybody gets $1,000 a month. It's basic living. You got a roof over your head. You got food. Those things, and you got school, and maybe some health care. Those things are handled, and then everything else above that you got to work for. What do you think of those ideas?
Well, I think it needs to be tied to a minimum work.
Right.
I mean,
so you're not opposed to it if it included 100 hours of work or something.
Right. Yeah, of course. I mean, anytime you give somebody something for free, you're taking it from another person. You're saying, hey, you have to go work over there. I'm going to take some of yours and give it to this person because they're more worthy for whatever your measurement is. So that's the risk there. Is anytime you give something, the government doesn't make anything. The only money they can give is the money they take from those that produce. Why should someone who produces nothing get money from the government? I mean, I have a real problem with that. A friend of mine has this model where he wants to put all the people into an auction system, an eBay auction system. So he'll say, all right, you're going to get welfare or minimum income, whatever you want to call it. But you've got to put your services into an auction engine and let any business bid for them. And the government will ensure you have at least this price, and the market will determine what you get.
Oh my God, that is so...
Isn't that brilliant?
Fascinating. Yeah.
Because now they will start working, they will get skills, and over a certain percentage, they would actually keep more of it.
That's fascinating. So if you're on welfare, if you're on the dole, you put yourself in there and say, I'm capable of these things. I can make hamburgers. Right. I could be a waiter. I could whatever. I can do manual labor or whatever. And then people come to that site and say, okay, these are the people who are unemployed or on welfare, and they have this many hours. I will bid this amount for them.
That's right.
Independent of minimum wage or whatever.
That's right.
So there's like, okay, you got whatever it is, 200 hours a month of assistance. No, 160 hours a month of assistance, a full-time job. I'll bid $5 for that. You got paid $10 from the government, so I get that margin. The government gets back half their money.
That's right. And that person is learning a skill. They're contributing to society. And as they improve their skills, they will get more and eventually, hopefully, be off the welfare system.
Which is supposed to be what actually unemployment was supposed to work like. You were supposed to come every week and get asked, did you look for work? Where did you go? You know, they're supposed to be ensuring that you are taking jobs. So it's not insane to think that you would put in profiles and be like, this is the person's skills. Somebody could then bid them in order to offset their unemployment.
Absolutely. And now you have a contributing member of society who's getting educated in some field. Right? It may be at the bottom, but hey, that's how we all start, right? I know you started at the bottom. I started at the bottom. That's how you learn.
You know, the problem with guys like us who started at the bottom is we're white guys. And so everything we say comes from a position of, you know, the people who, you know, have had it easiest for some long period of time. And even though we had to struggle, we did have certain things that were easier than, say, black men in this country who are getting shot while running away from the cops, which you must admit is disturbing.
Well, it's disturbing, but it's overblown from a statistical standpoint. You know, I think the bigger issue is black unemployment and drug wars. You know, the government gives people a monopoly.
You're for drug amnesty, drugs being available, taxed, and regulated.
Sure. I mean, why not? Humans have taken intoxicants since the original Garden of Eden. I'm sure they were licking mushrooms or bullfrogs or whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the innate human nature. Our government gives a monopoly to the bad guys.
Yep.
And says you will be allowed to sell these drugs, and because you have a monopoly,
and by
you can
bad
charge
guys,
a high
you mean
price.
Like the OxyContin producers and the pharmaceutical companies and the alcohol companies?
I'm talking gangs.
Yeah.
I'm talking Mexican cartels.
Yeah.
The reason they sell heroin instead of aspirin is because the government gives them a monopoly and props the price up.
How do they do that?
Well, but the government says, if you and I wanted to use our fine entrepreneurial skills to create a heroin business.
I'm in. Let's go.
Right. We would be imprisoned.
Yes.
So what they have done is they give a monopoly,
a de facto monopoly,
to all those people who will operate outside the law. And if you and I tried to compete with them, we would be in prison. So they keep this price super high, and that's why gang murders happen. If you care about blacks getting shot, blacks getting shot by other blacks is 20 times a bigger issue, 50 times bigger issue than being shot by cops. If you care about that, we should legalize drugs, because then the gangs would have nothing to fight over. What do they fight over? They fight over, do I get to sell drugs on this corner, or do you get to sell drugs? And I'm going to shoot you if you come into my turf, right? Or we did a bad transaction or whatever. That's the root of most homicides. You legalize drugs,
but the
that
one
goes down.
Yeah, but the 1 in 20 of that is a cop who's a bad cop, and a dirty cop still needs to be addressed.
Oh, sure, but there's bad cops that shoot white guys all the time, and there's black, so that's not racism necessarily. That's a factor.
I haven't seen the video of the white guy getting killed yet by the cops, though.
It doesn't make the news, Jason. It doesn't make the news.
Yeah, I just think it happens at a magnitude less is the issue.
Well, part of it is because blacks are incarcerated more and commit more crime. So you have more interactions with police. So it's just a statistics game, right? So just a statistics game.
Yeah.
The more interactions you have with the police, the more bad interactions you're going to have with police. Listen, it's heartbreaking when you see a guy, selling loose cigarettes on New York and gets thrown into a chokehold.
Yeah, that was excessive. Yeah.
It's heartbreaking and it's bad. And if there's bad cops, they should be punished to the fullest extent.
How did that guy get off? I don't understand it. It's crazy. Like, you can literally choke a person to death. And they didn't need to. I mean, they could have just handcuffed him. There was like 8 cops around him. It's just madness. Oh, here's a question from Eric. Pretty sure the lack of a search engine is not what's mainly wrong with. You got to scroll it up a little bit. I can't see the rest of the question. From Eric_analytics. Pretty sure the lack of a search engine is not what's mainly wrong with. What's the rest of the question, Jackie? Can you scroll down on the on-air questions? Or just delete the first half of the question? I can see it. There we go. Pretty sure the lack of search engine is not what's mainly wrong with FM radio. Do you think, what's wrong with the radio business? I mean,
well,
Spotify.
Right. Well, the FM radio business, if he's talking to the actual FM radio business, hey, these guys have been given a government monopoly now that we're talking about it, right?
Yeah.
The government says, hey, you're the only guy
Who can be on the dial.
that can be on 95.7.
Yeah.
You have a monopoly. And what happens when you give people a monopoly? They get fat, lazy, and slow and expensive.
Yep.
They do.
Yeah.
And so here comes the internet. And these FM radio operators have no idea how to compete because they had a monopoly, right? Once again, the government, if you and I created a radio station, we put up a transmitter in our backyard, we would be thrown in prison. We'd be fined and thrown in prison. And so these guys, you know, he's absolutely right. The FM radio business is going to change dramatically. People are moving more towards Pandora or internet options like 6 Second, hopefully, and Sirius and things like that. But what's our business, by the way, at 6 Seconds, we have 100,000 radio stations. This is not just FM guys. It's an explosion of internet-only stations as well.
Yeah, the internet-only ones are quite a phenomenon now. Where is that big? Is it big here in the United States? Who are the big players in that? Or is it kind of an underground thing because, you know, there's no sanctioned way to do it? Or is there other sanctioned ways to do it?
There are sanctioned ways to do it. There's a whole bunch of operators out there like Radio Nami and things like that where you say, hey, here's my playlist, and boom, it's turnkey. You're in the radio business. What's interesting there is about when you have an FM radio business, you have to pay the government for that license.
Right.
And you have to buy leased land and for the transmitting tower.
Yeah.
And you have to pay a big power bill. And so you have to reach a big audience. And so how do you do that? Well, you don't do that by playing Bob Dylan all the time. No offense, Jason.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to reach a broad audience, and that homogenizes everything down.
Right.
On the internet, as you and I both know, it's radically different economics. If you want to have a 24/7 Bob Dylan channel, you do.
Right. But do they clear also the rights and everything like that?
They do.
Those startups will do that?
They do.
So you pay a fee, or you just give advertising, or how do they
They'll
work?
either charge a fee, or they'll say, we'll take care of the advertising for you, and we'll pay the fee.
What is the fee now? Is there like a standard fee that Pandora and all these people pay? Like, was it like $1 per 1,000 listeners per hour or something?
It depends on the country. In the U.S., it's approximately 0.1 cent per song per user. That's what Pandora pays.
0.1 cent. So 10 people listen to a song, you get a penny.
That's right.
You pay a penny.
That's right. For non-Pandora,
So 1,000 people, you pay $1.
Right.
For 1,000 people to listen to a song, you have to pay $1. Wow.
That's right.
So if 1,000 people listen to a song on Spotify, or
Spotify is different because that's just radio that we're talking about. Radio. So there's 2 types of music. There's broadcast radio.
Got it.
And then there's interactive. You get rewind, you can pick the song, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha. They pay a higher fee.
They pay a higher fee.
What do they pay?
Well, but back to Pandora very quickly. So Pandora pays 0.1 cent. Believe it or not, the iHeart guys pay 0.2, double. Yes, stunning, right?
Why do they pay double? More skips, or they're owned by the music industry? Or?
Neither. What happened is that they came out with these rates that were 0.2 cents per song per user. And Pandora said, we're going to go bankrupt. And so what they did very cleverly was they gave only the internet guys a 50% off coupon that expires this year. So right now, Pandora is operating with a 50% off coupon that expires at the end of this year. And people are wondering what will happen to the rates, which is why Pandora, who did almost $1 billion of revenue last year, is only worth $3 billion.
Because this is coming up at the end of the year.
That's right. Everyone is wondering what will happen to their rates, right? Because they're at 0.1-ish. And
what's their margin? A 30-40% margin business? Is there enough room?
No. Pandora doesn't really make a profit. They're running at break even right now. Even with $1 billion of revenue, they're running at break even. At 0.1 cent. So imagine if it goes up any level, it could really crucify them.
If they're spending $600 or $700 million on that license and $300 or $400 million running the business, If it goes up 50% and you add 300 million, whew,
Ouch.
ouch.
Yeah.
It's over.
So Pandora, on the big picture, Pandora pays about 50 to 60% of their total revenue for royalties right now. Depending, on the quarter, 50 to 60%. So obviously you can see if it goes up.
Yeah, it's 25% increase.
Now Spotify, they don't have a radio license. Pandora gets their license from the government.
Got it.
Spotify goes right to all of the
labels,
the record labels, and gets a direct license. It's more expensive, but it comes with more features.
Right. Rewind, make a list, all this stuff.
That's right. And that's called interactive. But you pay much more. And this is why Spotify, who did more than $1 billion last year, they just raised money at $8.5 billion valuation.
Incredible. Yeah.
So it's a big valuation, but there's still lots of question marks on can they make that model work?
Right.
Because they pay even more than Pandora does.
Incredible. So the world is changing. What do you think of this new title? I saw this press conference. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. A bunch of billionaire or centimillionaire or tens of millionaire, a bunch of millionaires. I don't think any of the music people are billionaires, right? Jay-Z's not a billionaire. But anyway, maybe Jay-Z and Beyonce equals a billionaire. But anyway, these people who are all millionaires get on stage and they declare their independence and sign the Declaration of Title or whatever this is. And they never show the product. I mean, you came on, you show the product, you go through the feature set. They never showed the product. The product it costs twice as much, and you have to get like a high bit rate. Nobody cares. And who are they getting their freedom from? I thought that the music.
Well,
I don't get it. Did you see it?
I did.
Was it as stupid as I thought it was?
It was crazy. And we were tempted to call our new product Untitled.
Untitled.
Right? Untitled. Because we're the opposite. Because Jay-Z says, hey, you should pay $20 a month.
Right.
Because I'm Jay-Z.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty much his argument.
It's basically going to drive everybody to piracy.
Yeah.
I guess they have a low-fidelity version, too, that's half the price or something.
Right. But it's just an absurd position. The people on the internet are not ordered around by even the megastars.
Yes.
You don't order people around on the internet. There's been several studies, and one of the largest one says that 87% of the people will not pay even $20 a year for music.
Wow.
So you have
it's
to have
valued that low.
Well, you have to have a free experience, right? And it has to be monitored. That's just the nature of humans in general, by the way. So you have all these companies, Rdio and Rhapsody and Spotify and Tidal and the new
YouTube.
Apple Beats. They're all chasing these people that will pay $10 a month, and that's a really small audience. This is why something like 6 seconds that's free and gives you some searching, I think makes sense and could really realistically get hundreds of millions of listeners worldwide.
Could certainly do that. I mean, I love the global aspect of it, because one of the things that I think is very interesting, like I have a VPN that lets me, travel the world as it is by IP address, and you can change your IP and hear what's going on in other countries. Like the BBC, from what I understand, only shows their iPlayer inside of the UK.
That's true.
But if you had a UK IP address, I understand, a friend who is not me told me that if you changed it, you could watch the iPlayer and experience that. So on a global basis, very interesting. Like they have all these playlists of people doing French covers of Bob Dylan or other stuff. That's really fascinating. It's such an opportunity. And if they tear down these walls, people could do it. But what about piracy? Are people still pirating a lot of music? Or is it unnecessary because you can go to YouTube and watch the video? What role does YouTube play in all this? Seems to me that's the ultimate hack.
Yeah.
All these kids are listening to YouTube.
That's absolutely true. Now, the YouTube is undoubtedly the largest music player out there. Now, it's a singles game, right? You click and you play, and then that's one song.
Or you get a playlist
maybe
going.
it plays a few songs, but it's not a radio type experience. You have to put it in the foreground.
Right. You can't just put it in the background.
Right.
Is that a technically not allowed thing? Like they're not allowed to play the music in the background?
That's right. There's a little. There's an app on Android called Viral Pop, I think it is. And
you just got them shut down. A friend who's not you.
But here's
told you.
Here's what I did. I listened to your show.
Interesting.
On my Android phone while doing email.
Interesting.
Using this app.
So you watch the YouTube video and you can minimize it.
And it was right over my email.
Yeah.
And I was
doing but you can use like Stitcher or some of the other ones too to do it. I think
right.
You can find me on any of those platforms, SoundCloud. And what about SoundCloud? What's their, because it seems like all the artists.
They're unlicensed right now, and that's the big challenge, right? Will SoundCloud actually get a license for their content. And there's huge pressure on them to do so.
But they just take down stuff that people put up illegally.
They will take it down.
They DMC it.
Right,
Yeah,
but
boom.
and they used to have a huge collection, but they're getting more and more pressure to institute the content ID like YouTube has, right?
Yeah.
Where if you upload the Madonna song, they
It knows
spot
it's
it
a Madonna song,
automatically
yeah.
and immediately, proactively take it down. So I think you'll see SoundCloud increasingly implementing that
Which is not
technology.
part of the DMCA. That's like a little addition they're doing.
That's right.
You know what I find amazing? I cord cut when I came up here to San Francisco. I was like, I was a DirecTV guy for a long time, like paying like $150 or $200 a month to have it in like 6 rooms. And it's like, forget it. I'll just try without it. And I signed up for Hulu, Amazon. I get Amazon Prime for free. I got Netflix, and then I can buy series. And boy, is it delightful. And you don't miss anything because you can just buy the shows for the series and still spend less than you do on all this stuff. What do you think about the unbundling of all this TV stuff? Is that going to happen? And
It is happening. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think sports are the big wild card in all that.
yeah, because this year I pay.
Because you're right. The movies, the series,
You get them everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like to wait till the season's over. I'm a binge guy. Like I'm binging Daredevil right now. It's amazing on Netflix, I think. Like I don't want to watch Game of Thrones this season. It's too good. I want to wait till all 10 episodes are done. But what were you saying about sports?
Well, sports is the one you can't get.
Yeah.
And
most leagues are not available.
That's right. And I think that's the big holdback. Once that dam breaks, if it does break, then you're going to see an explosion of a la carte, sort of build your own TV experience.
You can buy NBA. I bought the NBA League Pass, but there's so many blackout dates that it's just ridiculous. Like
Football's the big one, right? NFL.
Yeah, I heard Google was going to try to buy the license for YouTube for internet, and then it'd still be digital, but you could buy season pass on YouTube. That'd be a master stroke, right?
It would, but I can't imagine how much that would cost, Jason, because the NFL.
Who cares?
Has
Google's
so
got
much
so much
money.
Apple should do it for the new Apple TV. Include a season of the NFL with every Apple TV. Is that what they're going to do with Beats? Are they going to just make it part of your phone price? When you buy your phone, they put $10 towards a
You know why I
streaming
love
radio?
watching you, Jason? Because you always throw out these crazy ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're always like, you know what? This company should buy that company.
Yeah.
You're always
Why not?
doing that, and I do love that about you.
Yeah, Time Warner plus AOL. What could go wrong?
Right. Well, I think Apple Beats is going to be a huge dog.
Why?
Because the number of people that will pay $10 a month for music is very small.
Right.
And most of them are already on Spotify or Rdio or Rhapsody.
It's like, what's the total? 10 million people are paying that, or 15 million, something?
Spotify
small.
has 16 million globally, but that's
Globally.
global, right?
Yeah, so half in America, half out.
Right. So is there more opportunity? Yes, but it's very small, right? Just by
What's the
nature
right
of it.
price? You think? What price would get would get cable like penetration 50% or something?
Well, I think
A
it
month
needs to
or a year.
be. I think what the music industry do is dramatically lower the price and then just bundle it with everything, right?
Bundle with
So you actually would pay it, 3 and 4 times, right? So when you buy your Tesla car, you'd pay for it. When you get your smartphone, you'd pay for it. When you
Gotcha.
get your,
Which is how Sirius works. Like when I have my Sirius subscription, I have a phone, 2 cars, and you just pay whatever, like $8 for the first, $2 or $4 for the next, and it seems okay. for
Right,
Stern.
but here's the thing about
For how
music.
we-
What I think the music industry refuses to recognize is that competition for the entertainment dollar has gotten so ferocious. They always dream back to the quaint time where it's like, well, it's Friday, it's time for album release day. I think I'll go to the record store.
Yeah.
And
What record store? Tower Records. Where is it?
That's what they all yearn for, and they don't realize that today's young people have video games, 27 different styles of video games, right? My kids come up with the acronyms. Dad, it's not a MMOR, it's an M something other.
Yeah, it's RTS, MMOR. Blah, blah, blah,
They have, and then there's fantasy games, and then there's
they're playing
casual
those games for
and-
$5, and they get 100 hours out of it.
Sure, and then you have fantasy football games and DraftKings, which are like one-day seasons.
Yeah.
And you have all this competition. So the music industry always goes, that damn piracy is taking all of our money. And they don't realize it's not piracy.
Yeah.
It's Game of Thrones, it's DraftKings, all of those guys are eating
Angry
away
Birds, chipping away.
exactly, eating away at the
Podcasting.
importance of music. And I think that is not something you solve by more lawsuits on BitTorrent sites.
I had a really good idea that specifically for Bob Dylan, and everybody's got their own like Bob Dylan. If somebody just wrote an interesting email every week about a Bob Dylan moment in history or a song or a cover, and then provided that as an attachment, and I got 52 of those a week, I think I'm paying $1 or $2 a week. I think I'm paying 52 or 104 or maybe even $5 a week. Like, it'd be my cup of coffee every week. My little treat to myself is this exquisitely written, beautiful email about Dylan, this week in Dylan history, Empire Burlesque, they cut this track. How come nobody does anything like that? Or something like that at the music companies?
I think...
Does that exist?
I don't think it does. And here's the great paradox with media. The more media you give people, the more they want. And it's almost counterintuitive.
Right.
Right? Is that once
less is not more.
Right. Like, look at football.
Yeah.
Now they have live coverage of the draft. Are you freaking kidding me? That's the worst television ever, right? They're
the
just
most boring thing ever.
But that's how, the more information you give people, the more they're starved for it.
Yeah.
But it's almost counterintuitive. And the music industry thinks that. They think, well, if I make a music subscription $3 a month, then I'll lose a Spotify customer. If I make it $3 a month where you have one-click access in your Tesla, then I'll lose a Spotify customer. They don't factor in that, no, you'll get both.
Right. You get both. Yeah, it's not a zero-sum game.
The more you give people, the more they want.
If you think about The Walking Dead, it's like when The Walking Dead became a hit, I was like, why don't they do like Walking Dead Japan, Walking Dead Moscow, Walking Dead London, Walking Dead New York? This could be like the Law and Order, which really nailed it. They were like, we're going to do every city, every crime, and they overdid it. But, and then they did Talking Dead, and now they're doing a prequel about The Walking Dead in Los Angeles, like where like it broke out. Like they could be doing 7 of those series. It makes no sense.
Yeah, there isn't much creativity around the music industry, and part of it is because the rights are all fractured up. Meaning that there's Warner Music, and maybe they have Madonna rights to Madonna, but not the publishing rights. That's a different company.
Got it.
Right, and one company might have that in the U.S., and another company might have that in France.
Right. And they chop this stuff up so badly that nobody can make heads or tails of it.
That if you had this idea where you say, I want to do this, email Bob Dylan, for $29, it can be a great birthday gift. Everyone over, who's 58 and over is going to buy this thing. Yeah. Well, you can't get the rights for worldwide sending songs because it's millions of dollars of legal fees just to find the owners, and it torpedoes innovation like that.
All right, listen, this has been fascinating. We could talk for another 3 hours. We'll definitely have you back. Congratulations. Everybody check out Unlimited Skips, 6 seconds in the App Store, or go to unlimitedskips.com. Looks amazing. I've downloaded it, and I will be using it. This is good for me in the car, actually, in the Tesla. It's like I don't have...
What kind of internet access do you have in there?
It's got a 3G connection, which kind of sucks. I think they're going to put LTE in it, but the 3G is free. So I think Tesla pays on your behalf for a little bit of data. But it can hotspot with your phone or your at-home Wi-Fi, so you can do downloads for the software for the app for the car. But what's just really interesting is just I have like I look like an Uber driver. I got my iPhone 6 on the dash with the phone like right there, and I use Sirius or the podcasting app from Apple itself, which has gotten much better. And I listen to Howard or an audiobook from Audible, or I listen to podcasts. That's my 3 listening. And then I have Rhapsody too, which I have for my home Sonos system. But this is going to be big in my thing, because I'm looking for something that doesn't have like commercials. And I like the idea of dropping into radio stations and hearing what the curator picked next. See, I think you need to, I loved Vince Skelson when I was a kid growing up. He did Idiot's Delight in New York.
Sure.
And we used to that was what we did on Sunday nights. And then there was other shows like that where people just had a lot of character. And, what was the woman's name? These DJs mattered back then, they really would introduce the music. Hey, this is a Dylan song from Empire Burlesque. This is from Street Legal when he was going through this phase in his life and his divorce. And here's Jackson Browne after his wife died. Whatever it was, they just gave you some reason to care about the next track. just a little bit of curation. I think that's what's missing. I want to buy a radio station. What does it cost for us to buy a radio station, Michael?
Well, they're free to set up online. That's what you need to do.
No, I know, but can you imagine you have one of these drive time ones in like a major city?
The rules drive you crazy, Jason.
Oh, is that the problem?
Oh my gosh, they fine people because they didn't file the right WBLA formula. I mean, if you saw this, you would not believe the antiquated. How antiquated the radio business is, the old school radio business.
This is my dream. Just quit all my jobs, and then I just do 3 to 6 o'clock drive time radio, take my daughter to school, go to the gym, take a 2-hour lunch, and then just do 3 to 6 o'clock, the Jason Nation, and talk about anything, not just tech.
How about?
I'm tired of talking about tech.
How about your boy Howard? Is he going to renew with?
I don't know.
Sirius
I see.
XM?
That's the thing is, I think Howard. I would love to talk to Don Buchwald. Look at us have somebody in my audience must know Don Buchwald. I'd like to set up that meeting because I would invest in that. That would be a really interesting thing if Howard Stern just made an app. And when you turned it on, you just pay Howard directly $10 a month. Because the only reason I'm on Sirius is to pay him $10 a month. So if I just paid Howard $10 a month, and he had 10 million people doing that, I mean, or 5 million people doing it, wow. If you had 1 million people doing it, it's $120 million. And to set that up, what would it cost? You set up $1 million studio, $2 million studio, whatever, and I don't know what staff costs.
But he doesn't have to take the risk, right? If he can go out and get a 9-digit guarantee from somebody, to take him on, I think that's where it is. So
what would be cool is if he could do any hours he wants. See, that's the thing. He could just be like, you know what? The show this week is going to be at noon. The show this week is because he just did like a Madonna interview, and like they could only get Madonna from 12 to 2 or something. So he's like, yeah, we're going to do the show 12 to 2. And, the serious people give him a hard time about him changing the time slot around, I think. He could just do anything he wants anytime. Any amount of content, anytime. That's the sell to Howard. Somebody should get me a meeting with Howard. Because it would cost, I think you could probably set it up. You could set it up on a technical basis, like really have a good 10-person team technically, like... I think you could run it for $2 to $3 million on the tech side, right? Something like that. To have a really good, high quality, bulletproof system. And then he would make whatever's after that. Like literally the first 2 weeks would pay for the entire year. He could definitely make $1 million a week. Definitely. Okay, anyway. Listen, everybody follow MP3 Michael on Twitter. Go to MP3. Well, no, you don't go to MP3 Tom. You can check out dar.fm. That's still running. I still get my emails. And 6 Seconds. Email 6 Seconds and check it out. And let Michael know what you think about it on Twitter at MP3 Michael. Thank you, Jacob, Jackie, everybody, and our sponsors, of course, Scott Walker and Envision. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.